She wrote me about Phnom Penh, how in the beginning all there was a river called the Mekong, and how that river became a road, and how that road branched out into the world. And because it was once a river, it kept on running. She wrote me about how Phnom Penh was never certain of itself, how one does not move through the city without being rubbed by it, as if everything were touching to make certain it was actually there. It's common knowledge that every resident of Phnom Penh has brushed up against one another at least once. But everything works the way it works here. Phnom Penh isn't dysfunctional, she wrote me. Instead, it functions in the dis. It is its center. She wrote me about how strange it was to return to a place she had never left. She wrote of trying to go elsewhere, to flee, but she could only manage to haunt places she had already been. It's not easy only having your memories to keep you company, she wrote me. I've begun photographing everything, because everything has become so significant. I've learned the specific banality of a place is where you find its most sincere descriptions. She wrote me, Phnom Penh's banality is a kind of dispossession. Like me, she wrote, many of its buildings live outside of time. They live in the past for a future. It is a city that very clearly only belongs to no one for now. She wrote, if you don't believe me, ask the Independence Monument. It was built by Van Molle Van in the 1950s, when I was just a child. Today there is a very busy roundabout that surrounds it. She wrote me, it is the perfect monument for Phnom Penh. How, you may ask? The monument is hardly accessible by foot. And because of the nature of a roundabout, for the living, crossing becomes treacherous. I suppose, she wrote me, independence is always difficult to reach. But that's traffic in Phnom Penh, not unruly, but anarchic. Instead of traffic lights, motorists in Phnom Penh follow each other, inching in and out of very brief agreements. It helps to be a police officer to control traffic. It helps even more to have a large car. Traffic stops only for politicians, for the wealthy, for weddings, and for funerals. She wrote me, I am learning how to look. I don't know what it's about, but everything seems to call out to me like never before. Looking doesn't stop where it used to. There's a place within me that I wasn't aware of. What's going on there, I don't know. She wrote me, yes, I'm not very good at it, but I am learning. The green mesh of construction sites in Phnom Penh remind me of chroma key green screens. Possibility, but mostly fiction. Only a few years ago, Phnom Penh was a blue, flat, dusty city. Now, there's more building than there are buildings here. She wrote me, what Phnom Penh will replace the old one? But this place is young and old at once. Things threaten to die and birth in the same instance. She wrote me, did you know the city was emptied in 1975? The entire city was marched out one hot spring day. Everyone left me. Everyone left but me. It's not so difficult to imagine the city emptied. Even with the crowds, the city still resembles a shadow. Or maybe it's like the reflection in a puddle from a rain you didn't hear or see. Or like letters from a ghost. An image you know will always remain incomplete. I must tell you of what I've learned from all this looking. The remnants of everything are everywhere. Everything touches. She wrote me, after all, maybe this is why I'm here. To find the force that I can feel but cannot see.
Yes, you speak Khmer?
Khmer.
Huh, Khmer?
It pulls on me now and then.
Oh, Khmer is so brang, eh?
Huh?
Oh,
She wrote me, I've heard that time moves differently in each part of the world. Perhaps it is why I cannot leave this place. Perhaps your body remembers a past here. What happens to us when we are dislocated? Or perhaps it doesn't affect us, or we don't remember. But I often wonder about the leftover energy. Everything must go somewhere. She wrote me, I've been here since the beginning, but every day I recognize less and less. I wonder if the city also has difficulty recognizing me as well. What goes up? It's inevitable, I think. But is everything imaginable inevitable? She wrote me, the city used to always show its bones to me. She wrote me, I want to listen to it speaking to me, but I no longer know how. She wrote me, I must tell you of the tiny houses around the city. It's not a surprise, but it's still a tragedy, she wrote. It's true. Buildings are getting destroyed at an alarming rate. But the tiny houses are meant to house the spirits of ancestors. The spirits live in trees too. She wrote me, in Cambodia, nature is always making its way in. Perhaps it is a reminder of the way of everything. Destruction is a kind of progress. We consume, we are consumed. She wrote me, do we not respond to calls that were already made to us long before we arrived here? By the way, do you know what a bad infinity is? Perhaps it is best explained through the legend of the cicadas. They scream loudly in the forest here in Cambodia. They say they are the reincarnated souls of the stifled. The cicadas cannot keep quiet because in their lives as people, they do not get to say all the words that they wanted to. She wrote me, but back to the tiny houses I mentioned earlier. The houses are also meant for spirits that have nowhere else to go. The people here leave offerings in those little houses every day. The hope is that the living will take care of you when you move on. She wrote me, they burn money, leave food, and even telephones. Daily offerings for their ancestors and the many wandering souls with nowhere to go. Looking. Everything moves towards the end. She wrote me, do you believe in coincidences? I used to ignore coincidences. Now I chase after them. I always end up at the same places. I'm back at the Olympic Stadium again. The bats squeal. The stadium is empty. It is one of the last places I still haunt. She wrote me, I wish you could write me back, though I know it is impossible. But should we only dream of what is possible? Haircuts, I suppose, work in a similar fashion. Expectations, desires, reality, consequences. Ghosts don't always respond, but they always listen. It's the living who interfere with, haunt the dead, not the other way around. She wrote me, does Cambodia love ruins, or do ruins love Cambodia? Things don't disappear as much as they disperse. She wrote me, but it's inevitable. The same way every moment is unanimously replaced with another. She wrote me, we are constantly being dispersed, unless we are being held together. To be looked at is to be remembered, to be alive. as much as it is to be alive if you're the one looking. But we forget who we are without things to look at. We evaporate like a cloud along with each forgotten thing. And now these new cities are replacing us. She wrote me, even the other ghosts I meet are new. So we vanish with everything else, simply by forgetting. Because without touching to remind us, we become untethered, with no relation to where or when in which you vanished. Is this how ghosts die?